About 2 weeks ago, George came out and discussed how he had ended up running into Mike Majlak in the airport. And I want to discuss it because he said a lot of interesting statements. And I want to go ahead and explore it because I couldn't believe what I was listening to.
And I'm not going to lie. Out of all the people that got underneath my skin, Mike was the most. Mike was like, I hated Mike. And it's very hard for me to use the word hate. And we did set a time aside to talk, but it was always Mike that I thought, God forbid, I would swing. Like, I'm not lying.
He said that he will swing on Mike. And not only that, he said that out of the entire cast, Mike was the one that got under his skin, not Logan. This is absolutely fascinating to me because I was always under the impression that Logan was the antagonist, because there's a lot of behaviors that Logan exhibits that, at least to me, give me that impression. And there are many examples of Logan invalidating other people's statements, feelings. Like, for instance, I'll provide probably 2 or 3. This is one of the instances where Logan and Mike, they kind of clash against each other because Logan was being inconsiderate of Mike's time.
Just confused right now because I noticed Mike's going absolutely silent ever since I said he's talking all
I just want to make sure you get a chance to talk.
I just lost my co-host. Well, I mean, if I'm gonna do it myself, let me know.
I hate when you get like that. It's so annoying. Like I'm trying to talk about shit that has like a ton of meaning to me, and you're literally like, speed it up, and you're like, Dylan, speed him up, man.
And the back and forth didn't stop there. For the rest of the show, Mike and Logan just kept going back and forth to the point where even Mike, just like Geroge Janko, ended up walking off the podcast.
Just read the sign.
Bro, honestly, dude, what do you want to do? Then yo, kill the episode, bro. See ya.
Like, fuck, he's walking. He's the second guest to walk.
Smoke it, bro. I have no problem answering it fucking email.
Now, granted, 2 things, all right? First, Mike, he did return to the podcast after some time. And second, yeah, I can kind of agree with Logan that Mike was being a little too brash because Mike was making a lot of provocative statements where I was thinking like, Mike, would you really do that? But my point is that the way he approaches it is a little inconsiderate of people sometimes, because it wasn't just, that was 4 years ago, by the way. If you take a look at his behavior now, he's still very consistent with that type of behavior, because just recently Mike ended up coming out talking about that he saw a statue of Jesus Christ underneath the water and he thought it was a sign. Now, if you guys don't know, Mike, he's a Christian, and so when he saw that was like some sign to him. You know, it meant something, a moment for him. However, for Logan, because he's not a Christian and doesn't believe in any of those religious experiences, Mike is about to take a shot with his own experience, and he's about to tell it when Logan ends up smacking that shit out the court.
But tell us about Jesus, seeing Jesus underwater.
Where'd you meet Jesus? I don't hear
Okay.
That.
Well, that's
George. I'm gonna one up you.
It's not as deep as you think. Like pun intended.
It's about 30 feet.
He went 30 feet underwater, and there's a statue of Jesus underwater.
Oh.
That's it. He went scuba diving in Miami. Yeah, bro, it's fine.
Okay.
I like how everybody at the end is like, oh yeah, no, that's quite insignificant. Well, yeah, no doubt, because Logan ended up minimizing it. To any Christian who ends up finding a huge statue of Jesus Christ underwater, I'm sure that that's gonna mean a lot to them. And for Logan to just sit there and just minimize and completely invalidate it, it's almost comical. So when I heard George talk about how he wanted to swing at Mike and that he even at one point hated him, to me, I was like, we can't be talking about the same person, man. Because believe it or not, Mike, every single time George was being teased by the guest, Mike was there to pick up the pieces. Not only to pick up the pieces, but to help George kind of regain his stance in a podcast. I'll even provide a couple of examples. So for instance, in the Shaq interview, you can see that Mike, he's trying to rally up the crowd like, hey, you know what? No, let's give it a round of applause for George. Let's go. Come on.
I'm like right next to them, but I can't hear anything in this. So I've been like trying, and then the worst. Let's give George a round of applause. Get him back in the game.
He's your partner.
He's the newest.
You see how Mike is attempting to sway the crowd over to George's side as well. He's not trying to belittle George. He's not trying to isolate him from the group. Instead, he wants him to stand out. Another example is when the Island Boys, they confronted George because George was attempting to give him advice. You just see that when the discussion is getting heated, Mike multiple times is attempting to step in for George.
What are you trying to scare me or something? I'm not scared of you, huh, man?
All right, I'm not scared of you guys either.
Okay, so just keep it like that. Feel me?
I'm gonna step in for a second.
George.
Hold on. No, hold on. No.
Hold on. Podcast.
That's the first time Mike attempts to step in. The second time is when Logan, I don't know if he's attempting to invalidate George's feelings or he's attempting to calm him down, but he's telling Georgie, what are you talking about? That's their shtick. And you can see that Mike is like, that wasn't a shtick.
Boys, what are we talking about?
Island boys.
No. It's a shtick. The whole thing's a fucking shtick, Georgie.
Well,
I seen the kid go from calm to like, he very clearly was like, now I want problems and smoke.
No, but that part wasn't a shtick.
Do you see how Mike doesn't just side with Logan? Instead, he tries to support George, because he could have easily said, yeah, George, what are you so upset about? That's the island boy shtick. He could have invalidated it, but instead Mike ends up saying that wasn't a shtick. And another reason why I want to show this is because a lot of people like to say that Mike is a meat writer, that he's a yes man for Logan Paul, when that's not really the case. It was always crazy to me that people had that impression of Mike. And of course, we can't forget the Bobby Lee episode with Logan Paul. This is the most controversial one, the most known. And even in that particular episode, no one knew that it was going to go viral. And Mike, he was still such a great friend, dude. Like, he's still trying to back up George. Even when George, he's completely out of it.
He is clocked out.
Yeah, I know.
George has been under a tremendous amount of abuse.
No, stop, George. I want you over here with me. George, I want you over here with me. Chase him down. Go. You find him. George, no, go get him.
You see how Mike is attempting to communicate to Bobby Lee, listen, he's been under a lot of pressure, a lot of abuse. Obviously, when George leaves, he's still trying to call him back, like, no, George, sit next to me. Like, it's cool. Like, bro, I mean, I'm not trying to paint Logan as a bad person. That's not what I'm trying to do, okay? But even Logan didn't even, like, speak up, you know? And that's fine, you know, because Logan, he has his personality. He has his own way of doing things. That's fine. I'm not saying that everybody should be the same. But Mike, to me, just stands out so much more here. And if you're having any doubts like, oh, well, Mike didn't have George in mind. He was just trying to do that to look good. No, dude, listen, I'm going to show you the clip where Mike talks about how he was perceived and what he would do with George behind the scenes.
The thing that was fucked up about it was that, like, I got a lot of negative feedback, like, coming out of the breakdown there, and I always had George's back. Like, if you watch any of the episodes where there was like a problem, like, I was generally arguing with George's side in mind. You know what I'm saying? Like the Christianity episode, like, me and George had Bible reading nights where he would call me and read from the Bible. Like this idea, I was really like vilified in this whole thing as well, where it really wasn't like a point your finger at one person type of situation. I think it was just a, you know.
And here's the thing. I know that when you hear it from Mike, it's coming from his side, obviously, right? But we can listen to George somewhat corroborate that story. Obviously, he doesn't explain the details, but at least George acknowledges that at least Mike was keeping up with him behind the scenes.
I call every one of you guys and check in on you. No one checked in on me. Mike, you checked in on me the first time I called you as I'm going through things. And I will admit, Mike consistently checked in on me afterwards.
So when I hear it from George and I hear him say that, to me, I'm like, you know what? I believe Mike. Not only because George says that particular detail, but because Mike has been very consistent with his character. And I promise you that these are just the bare minimum that Mike has done. There are so much more moments that Mike has done that are just awesome, but I can't put everything in this video, right? So, and I'm sure that you guys already get the point. So what I am trying to say is, why then? Why is it that George well, not anymore, but he came to the conclusion where he absolutely hated Mike, which again, when it comes from a Christian, you got to understand that that is not an easy word, especially for someone like George to use. So when he uses the word hate, it's really impactful. So what gets to that level of hate? And not only that, he also wanted to swing at Mike. To me, that makes me think like, you know what, man, there was way more that I am not informed about. And yeah, I will admit, man, like, I have not watched every single Impulsive episode to see what went on, but I will say that, like, yo, man, I've seen enough moments to where I think that Mike is a good guy. He's chill. The only reason that I can think of that George would ever get to that point where he would hate Mike is because perhaps Mike is being condescending towards George indirectly. Like, for instance, there was moments where the guests, they will end up roasting George, And then Mike would also laugh along with them.
I'm at a house party.
All right, this is getting wordy, but let's keep it.
You might want to give him his 2-week notice.
Yeah, we just need writers to edit that down.
So it may not seem like much, but when you have a really close friend like that and they're laughing at your expense, I mean, over time, I can imagine that it could potentially build up some sort of feeling. Now, I don't think that hate is probably the feeling someone would develop, but it can get pretty close to it. Now, ultimately, I don't know why George would hate Mike or even want to swing at him, because there's really no indication, at least from what I've seen. But hopefully they get together and they discuss it, which you can look forward to. I just don't know when.
I don't want to talk about it too much because I would hope that a portion of it will be used for us to all fix. Not that there's anything
Spencer
to
and I
fix,
are going to
but-
have that. Spencer and I are going to go out and have a podcast with George.
Yeah, so if they're attempting to rekindle the relationship, I'm sure that sometime in the future, they're going to bring it out. It may not be within a couple months or a year, perhaps probably like in 3 to 4 years, you know, when it's all behind them and they're not sentimental about the issue. Now, before I end the video, I want to go ahead and showcase to you guys one more thing, because I want to go ahead and teach you guys this lesson, okay?
By the way, George did get a signature of Shaq on a
Going
Shaq
in the
jersey.
Impulsive Museum, baby.
And he was such a sweet guy, dude. He was like, hey, man, I really like the way that you could take jokes. He goes, I leaned on you. He goes, but he goes, I like that.
Now, that moment, I know it seems a bit insignificant and very obscure, but George mentioned how Shaq said to him, I like how you could take jokes. I know I leaned on you, but I like that. Let me tell you guys something, man. I get it, bro. If you want to take jokes from a celebrity like that, you want to be humiliated or put in a spot like that, hey, by all means, go for it, man. From personal experience, I can tell you right now, I haven't been around a celebrity, but I've been around YouTubers with big followings, and I can tell you right now that it's not worth it, man. It really is not worth it. In the end, your confidence, your self-esteem is shot down at the expense of your confidence and self-esteem. And trust me when I tell you, when you're building your self-esteem and your confidence, it's so difficult to build it. And it's so hard to get it back. So if you lose it, just know that you're going to be lost in life, because you're not going to know what to do. You're not going to know if you're funny or not, because this happened to me. And I was only there for about like 2 months before I realized that I was being the joke the entire time. Literally, I was told that in order for me to be a part of the group, I had to earn it. And by earning it, what they meant was that I was the target of the jokes. I would make jokes all the time and they wouldn't laugh at any of them. And they were some of my best jokes too, because I would always make people laugh. And for some reason, this group of big YouTubers would not laugh at my jokes. And it was because they wanted to put me in place. And I was like, what the like, there's a hierarchy here. Like, I have to unlock an achievement to hang out with you. It wasn't worth it. And my sister and I, we left. We bounced because we were literally the talent there. And it just blew my mind how, like, you could treat your own talent like that. For 3 months, I was so lost because my confidence was shot down. I didn't think I was funny. I didn't think I was humorous at all. It was very difficult to bounce back, but I managed to bounce back, and I'm so grateful that I left. I left because I recognized it immediately. It took 2 months because you can't just recognize it as soon as you get there. It's a gradual process. But luckily I was able to recognize it because I have the rhetorical skills, communication skills, language skills, and of course the philosophical skills to recognize such rhetoric. A lot of people don't possess those skills, which is why for people like George, it took him almost like 2 years to recognize that was going on to him. He knew something was up. He could sense it, but he couldn't see it. Unlike me, where I'm able to sense it, but I can also see it because I know what it looks like. So if you're one of those people that asks, why didn't they leave early? You're probably most likely to be susceptible, believe it or not, because if you can't even put yourself in a person's shoes and think about why that person wouldn't leave, then most likely you're one of those people that are most likely going to get caught. And trust me when I tell you, man, it doesn't look like what you think it does. If you suspect that someone is attempting to belittle you and you feel it, you should trust that feeling. That is the best feeling that you have. And and it's probably the best resource you got, because if you're not knowledgeable in any of the fields that I mentioned, English, philosophy, psychology, linguistics, or even communications, then I think it's best for you to just step away from these people, because there's a lot of influential forces that are being applied that you just don't understand. And even I don't understand. Trust me, like I still have trouble picking up these cues, and I can still fall for it, but it's not as likely as somebody who doesn't possess my knowledge. So anyways, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and leave it there. So if you guys enjoyed the video, you already know what to do. Follow me on my Twitter and on my Instagram. Yeah, guys, that's all I have for you guys. And yeah, hopefully you guys learned something today.